The following day, Edgar and his bodyguards drove to where Luthor told him to meet him. It was at a barber shop in Jersey City.
I am glad to see you've decided to accept my offer,
Luthor said. Instead of a suit, this time he was wearing a strange purple jumpsuit with glowing green strobes that went around his chest like an X. Dead center on his chest was a glowing yellow hexagon with a green Y dividing the interior into 3 pieces.
And what is that exactly, seeing as how you've essentially called me to the middle of Jersey City?
I know the Justice League is working with your company, and I came to warn you what will happen. The Justice League will ruin their branding. Your company mascots, the Seven, will be utterly humiliated by them.
Exactly. Why should I consider taking your advice?
Mainly due to Homelander's chief rival. I've also read about who your team has been struggling to deal with. I know all about William Butcher and his rowdy band of miscreants, and I can assure you they would not be a threat in my world.
Butcher and the rest of his gang have disappeared. We suspect they might be in your world.
Really?
Luthor remarked, sounding amused.
Then I guess his run will come to an end.
You're certain?
The power the League has is beyond your quaint team. They even have some of the most intelligent minds, who only barely rival my own. Their resources are arguably significantly more vast than that of your company. Even Homelander is barely a fraction as powerful as Superman.
Luthor further explained. Edgar noticed Luthor's tone when he mentioned Superman.
I suspect you're speaking from experience.
Because I practically am you, Stan. Think about how Superman is my Earth's Homelander, or Wonder Woman your Queen Maeve. I believe I'm you. It was why I wanted us to meet in the first place. I was once the CEO of a company called LexCorp, for quite a while. He'll destroy the reputation of Vought and the image of your super team unless you allow me to help you.
Luthor said, his bitterness much more apparent.
How do you intend on doing that?
Edgar asked this time, sounding relatively curious.
We haven't even officially started production of V-24.
I need Compound V, just a single sample.
It's that simple?
Creating V-24 is easy enough for me. However, we'll need a story to create it. I am well aware of the problems that have occurred from the Seven. I know all about their various personal and psychological issues, especially those regarding Homelander.
Please elaborate.
I have already established my knowledge about his half-baked Compound V supervillain creation scheme. I know he attained your company's greatest secret and distributed it to terrorists like candy to children. Because of him, your company was at great risk, and he's dangerously unstable. I've worked with some of the most unstable minds and know what to expect. It will backfire on you. Sure, he wants to be loved by the public, but he will decide to do so with direct force one day. I'm also aware of how difficult Queen Maeve has been regarding the new image your company has in mind for her, A-Train's heart issues, Stormfront's controversial history, and just the Deep in general. Why deal with such destructive force when you can grant temporary powers to the real heroes? Imagine Homelander has gone rogue, and who is there to stop him? Not Superman, but a squadron of U.S. Marines powered by V-24 that your company provided them.
Are you suggesting we let Homelander go rogue?
Edgar asked, sounding concerned.
Yes, if he goes rogue, he's the perfect scapegoat. His Compound V trafficking scheme and all the dead bodies you've buried for him. What could you and your company do to stop such a powerful monster? You are, after all, only human.
Regarding Homelander, we already have a backup in mind.
Yes, I know about the boy, as well as the unfortunate circumstances regarding his conception. Tell me something. Are you really going to wait another decade for a new Homelander? Or let me rephrase it, do you really want to spend another decade with that man, Childish Time Bomb?
Ryan is supposed to be our ace in the hole when it comes to controlling Homelander. He is not in any way his future successor.
Which is why you did not want him to find the boy in the first place.
Yes.
I can assume your agreement to let members of the League watch over Ryan. They invited him to their watchtower so he could hone his powers.
What are you on about?
You've made a fatal mistake, with the League watching over the boy, especially with it being someone close to Superman. They'll show him a new idea of heroism. One that is not focused on preening to the media and filming asinine summer blockbusters, all for the sake of being a glorified company spokesman. You'll find that one day his allegiance to Vought will be secondary. If you're even that lucky...
What makes you say that?
Edgar asked. Although he was starting to understand what Superman had meant during their first meeting.
Because again, I used to be like you, Stan. It was why I wanted us to meet in the first place. At first I had tried to employ the alien, only to be shot down. That was my first mistake. Superman sought to bring me down, so I had to create certain beings to oppose him. Most of them tried to betray me. That was my second mistake. It was there that I realized that these superpowered beings cannot be controlled unless their powers are temporary and managed. So I decided to acquire enough power to do so. Unfortunately, it did not pay off. I am now one of the most wanted men on the planet. Of course, a lesser man would have just given up and waited for oblivion, but I wouldn't even entertain that train of thought.
I wish to see your lab.
Of course.
Lex smiled and turned towards the barbershop.
Follow me.
He simply said as he walked towards the entrance. Edgar and his guards followed him. It seemed like any other barbershop. The smell of shampoo polluted the entire area. Lex sat down on a chair. He motioned Edgar to do the same. They obliged Luthor's nonverbal request. Luthor pressed a button on his watch when all of a sudden, yellow light surrounded them. They were now somewhere else. The walls were made of a strange metal. Green automatons surrounded the area, armed to the teeth with strange guns and cannons. There was a massive computer down the corridor with a chemistry lab to the side. Edgar was amazed by this new location.
Welcome to my lab, Mr. Edgar.
Luthor said with a proud grin on his face.
Fascinating.
Edgar said, sounding intrigued.
What do you want Vought and myself to do?
Let things play out. Try and nudge any suspicion onto Homelander. In fact, there is something you might find concerning, relating to Homelander's plan.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm not responsible for this in any way, but some of the so-called super-villains of my world have apparently taken an interest in Compound V. Someone from my world is bringing them over to your world as we speak, as you saw with the Joker. My leading suspect for this is Dr. Thaddeus Savannah.
Edgar was stunned to hear this. Homelander was in the conference room with Stormfront and Ashley. He was disappointed, his fist closed with his elbow on the table, waiting for results.
Nothing?
Homelander questioned.
You have nothing? The alien has to have made mistakes in the past. He can't be perfect. It's too good to be true.
It's too good to be true. He's 6'4", has black hair, blue eyes, doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, and tells the truth.
The truth? I decide what's the truth. What about your internet flying monkeys?
Homelander addressed Stormfront.
We can access their internet. They must have something.
Some podcaster from his world did a pretty good job making people hate Superman. She got powers, became a supervillain, and now nobody trusts people who don't like Superman. But we got info on the others. Plastic Man has a criminal record longer than your Johnson and Wonder Woman broke a guy's neck in front of the whole world. They're not perfect.
Research did find some homophobic quotes from Green Lantern.
Gardner or Stewart?
Neither. Sentinel, the old one. We even have some disapproving answers from another hero called Obsidian.
Well, why would I give a fuck? The best you found was some grandpa who doesn't understand PR. Get out.
Ashley immediately left. Homelander got up from his chair, walked around the room, and approached Stormfront with his finger on her face.
Edgar was right. They're humiliating us. They are going to shut us down, and everybody is going to forget me.
They won't.
Stormfront said and got up.
You're the Homelander. You're traditional to this whole world. They're unfamiliar and don't fit here. Do you really think your demographic like it when they let psychopaths live? You stand for what Frederick stood for. They don't. I have Logan digging down their internet. Look at them. They put themselves on a pedestal. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. We'll find something we can leverage.
That's not true.
Homelander tried to turn his back on Stormfront, but she pulled him back to her and looked Homelander in the eyes.
You decide what's the truth.
After what felt like an hour, the boys were at the front of the line to the Iceberg Lounge. Beforehand, Frenchie took the liberty of getting them the appropriate clothes for this occasion.
Welcome to the Iceberg Lounge. How many are you seating?
6.
You may sit at the bar until we get your table ready.
The receptionist said, allowing them in.
Thanks.
The interior was much nicer than they expected, mainly the giant iceberg pool in the middle of the place with actual penguins.
She didn't even card us.
Hughie said, sounding worried.
This place likely attracts every lowlife in this city. We're nothing too special here.
They all sat at the table.
Okay, so what's the plan?
We make a distraction, sneak in, and bug the place.
What's the distraction?
First, we need to look around. You two lovebirds stay at the table. We'll take in the scenery.
Butcher said as he got up from his chair. He walked towards the bar and looked around, all while ordering a drink. Mother's Milk went to the bathroom, taking notice of any place that might be where the more illicit activities were being undertaken. Kimiko and Frenchie went over to the penguins. The latter seemed to be more fond of the birds, as she watched them in childlike excitement. As they sat at the table, Hughie and Annie noticed that the penguin was on the upper floor greeting his guests. Needless to say, his appearance matched his namesake as closely as humanly possible with his short height and beak nose. He wore a black and white tuxedo with a black top hat. In his hand looked to be an umbrella with a penguin on top of it. On his left eye, he wore a monocle, which might have given away their position, startling them both, which only worsened as he started to walk down the stairs. He practically waddled towards them.
Good evening and welcome to the Iceberg Lounge,
the penguin said, showing them his hand. He spoke in a British accent, his sounding much more traditional Queen's English than Butcher's rough Cockney.
It's nice to be here.
Hughie stammered out nervously.
I am Oswald Cobblepot, the owner of this esteemed establishment. Might I have your names, please?
He asked, his gaze more focused on Annie.
Oh, my name is Gary Camp.
Hughie said, stopping himself from telling the rest of his last name.
I'm Mary Shaw.
Annie said, remembering Maeve's last name.
Gary and Mary.
Penguin asked incredulously.
Yes, we've known each other since high school.
Hughie lied.
Our friends set us up as a joke.
Oh, I see. Tell me you seem quite young. I would have expected a couple of your age to go to a more lively venue.
Penguin said. They noted his disgust upon saying the word lively.
Well, my uncle from England. He came down here for a business meeting.
Oh, really? Where is he?
He's over by the bar.
Hughie said, pointing out Butcher.
Oh, lovely. Why don't you bring him over? I spent most of my childhood in England. I'm Gotham by blood. But London helped make me the man that I am.
Sure.
Annie said, rushing over to the bar. She tapped him on his shoulder.
We have a slight problem.
Annie told Butcher, pointing out Penguin.
I told you to stay at the table.
Butcher scolded her.
We did. He spotted us.
Does he know?
I don't know. He spent some time in England and wants to talk to you about it.
Butcher smiled, thinking he could use this to his advantage.
Give me the rundown on what you and Hughie told him.
Hughie said his name was Gary Camp. He told him that you're his uncle from England here for a business meeting. I told him my name was Mary Shaw.
Right. I got it. Now watch a professional.
He walked towards the Penguin.
So you must be the bloke of this establishment, James Camp.
Butcher said, smiling enthusiastically and shaking his hand.
You must be the English uncle. I am Oswald Cobblepot. Tell me, your nephew mentioned you were here on business. Where do you work for?
Wayne Enterprises.
Oh, I see. You know, with all this news of travelers from another world, it's nice to see something more mundane.
I can imagine. You saw what happened to that Homelander bloke, right? What a freak.
Indeed.
Penguin said, letting out a laugh. Butcher let out a chuckle.
Why I would hate to be outwitted by that Oedipal ignoramus.
Butcher stopped laughing and tried to hide his feelings of anger.
I don't really think that's funny. I mean, apparently, Joker killed 60 people.
Yeah, and Mary means no offense, Mr. Cobblepot.
Oh, no worries. I apologize if I was being insensitive. In this city, it helps to keep a strong sense of humor. Though to be fair, to Homelander, I've never seen the Joker use that style of bomb before.
At a grocery store in New York, Maeve was busy buying as much beer as she could manage incognito. Originally, she planned on stopping at 20 liters, but all the Brave Maeve advertisements made her double.
Quite the party you must be having.
She heard a woman call to her. Maeve turned around and saw the woman she saw in the crowd during the press conference.
Jesus Christ.
Maeve blurted out, completely startled.
No, I'm sorry for disturbing you. My name is Donna Milton. I'm new here.
She said defensively.
You're from Earth One?
Yes, I am. But if I'm being honest, I think I prefer your world.
Maeve scoffed at her notion.
I'm being honest. It feels good to be in a world that seems to bury the truth. Wouldn't you agree?
I'm not sure I get what you're talking about.
Maeve lies.
Oh, you poor thing. It must hurt having to now compare yourself to her. There's nothing to be ashamed about that, though. Few can.
Are you trying to insult me?
No. Quite the opposite. I can help you, Maeve.
Help with what?
What if I told you that I can help you pick up the pieces of your life? You would no longer need to worry about Homelander ever again, not just in your life, but for those you love.
Maeve paused and processed what Donna told her before she was given a card by her. On the card was her phone number.
Call me, and please keep this discussion a secret between us.
Donna told her before walking away. MM and Frenchie watched from the bar, Butcher talking to the Penguin.
We were not supposed to call any attention.
Don't worry, I put my special little mix in that guy's drink. In a few seconds, nobody is going to look anywhere but at him.
The guy in question was jumping excited with a crazy look on his face. He was young, had auburn hair and freckles, his tuxedo was blue, and he had a golden pin on his tie. He kept jumping and yelling cuss words in excitement.
You sure that's safe?
Perfectly safe. I even took some of it myself once, but I never did it again for a good reason.
The guy jumped on the bar, took 2 opened bottles, and started to run while spilling on the floor. His arms were open like wings, and he wouldn't stop yelling he could fly. The security positioned themselves and tried to catch him, but he was too fast and kept causing havoc. The Penguin was visibly pissed and loudly ordered his guards to catch the man.
Jesus, Frenchie, what did you put in that stuff?
Hughie whispered to himself. MM and Frenchie were able to walk across the staff-only corridors in the middle of the confusion. They walked down what seemed like an underground deposit. Frenchie planted a bug and went to leave, but he needed to see what happened there to know if it was the right place. Going further, the pair saw a curious scenario. 2 pairs of identical twins talking to each other. A pair had tousled brown hair and thin beards. They wore leather coats. The other 2 were freckled-faced gingers, wearing gray suits with blue shirts and bow ties.
Where's Penguin?
Mr. Cobblepot has to show his face in the club for the guests to remember who runs this place. Where's the stuff? You asked for the Penguin, but your boss doesn't show up and sends you 2 knuckleheads alone.
Who are you calling knucklehead?
Their argument was interrupted when a portal opened in the deposit. Two-Face and Solomon Grundy stepped out. Grundy was a big creature with chalky white skin and hair. His clothes were a torn suit with no sleeves left and a noose around his neck. Two-Face took the small box from Grundy and opened it, revealing a dose of Compound V. He gave it to the thin, bearded twins, and they paid him the money.
$222,000.22.
The twins said about the money. Solomon Grundy pointed in Frenchie's direction to indicate there was something wrong. They were about to search for what it was, until Two-Face flipped his coin.
Leave it.
Two-Face ordered. The Ginger twins and Grundy obeyed.
You're not our boss.
The other twins said at the same time and pulled out their guns. By the time they got there, Frenchie and MM were long gone.
I'll plant the bug, you go back. Just in case.
I don't like leaving you here, man.
I'll be safe, Fuzzy.
MM heeded Frenchie's words and left. When MM was out of sight, Frenchie found a door that looked like where meetings might be held. With the bug planted, Frenchie was about to go back to the lounge. Still, the second he got to the corridor, he faced a man wearing full body armor, guns all over him, a bow staff, and a broadsword on his back. His helmet was half orange and half black, with no way for him to see on that side. Frenchie immediately drew a pistol, but it was countered as the armored man grabbed his wrist and held his fingers. Frenchie's arm was then put behind his back before his face was slammed against a door. He blacked out upon impact.